Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. One of the things that studies have shown predict success in terms of therapy is the relationship between the therapist and the person who's come to see the therapist. And in terms of my work, it's one of the things I try to check up on. I do it in a very informal way, but I'll check in with the person that I'm working with just to make sure that the relationship is as they want it to be, that we're talking about the things that they want to be talking about, that we're spending the time in such a way that they want to, that the approach that we're taking is something that actually makes sense and fits with them. And so in a very informal way, I'll check in from time to time with people just to make sure that our relationship is going well, our kind of therapeutic relationship. And in fact, this is one of the reasons I often say to people that if you're not getting on with your therapist, they're not really striking a chord with you, they don't seem to be forming a good relationship together, then it can often be a good idea just to get a different therapist and things will tend to work better. And when I think about this kind of routine kind of thing that I'll do with my clients, just to check in on how things are and how things are going for them, not in terms of their outcome, although I do that as well, but in terms of whether they're happy with the relationship, whether they're satisfied with how things are actually going between them and me. I started thinking about what it would be like if there were such check-ins within romantic relationships. And so what I'm going to propose within this episode is just a way in which, if you're in a relationship, that you can check in with your partner and just get a sense of how things are going. Not in such a way as to attribute any kind of blame or disgruntlement, but from the spirit of trying to ensure that the feedback is there so that you can both improve it for each other. And so what I'm proposing here that you might like to try is 5 different ways in which to kind of measure how things are going for you in the relationship. And then, of course, your partner can do the same. They too can look at these 5 different aspects and just identify how things are going for them. Now, before I get to the 5 aspects, as I say, the point here is to try and ensure that things improve if they need to improve. And a very good way of doing this is, for each of these categories, just to rate them out of 10. And then secondly, once you've rated how things are going out of 10, validate what's going well. So I don't know, if you say that if things are 4 out of 10, you might think that's pretty low. But share all the things that are working well in this category of the relationship that mean that it's a 4 rather than, say, a 3 or a 2 or a 1 or a 0. Start to actually identify together what are the things that are going well in this area. Because by identifying what's going well, first of all, you provide some acknowledgement to what's going well in the relationship. But secondly, what it allows you to do is to identify for both of you the things that you'd be liking more of. It identifies what the relationship looks like when it's working for you. And it might only be there 4 out of 10, or even 3 out of 10, or whatever it happens to be. But if it's not an absolute 0, then that states that there are things that are going on already that look like how the relationship would be if it was working well. And that's a really valuable thing to bring to the fore. And then the final step is to ask what it would look like if things were just a little better. And so you can then focus on the small changes that you'd like to be experiencing within the relationship. And the benefit of doing this is you're much less likely to enter into recriminations because your focus is on what's working and what things will look like if things just improved a little bit. And so there's 3 stages to this. Just to recap, the first one is, how are things going in this particular category? Secondly is, what are you noticing that puts you at that score, like as high as that score? What's present? What's already going well? What is there that represents how you'd like the relationship to look? And then the final stage is, if things were just a little bit better than they are now, what would you notice? So they're the 3 stages, but here's the 5 categories that you can rate. The first one is safety. Like, how safe do you feel in the relationship? And I'm not talking about actual danger here. I'm talking about how secure you're feeling in the relationship, what kind of sense of, how long you think this relationship and how steady this relationship seems to be. Can you look at next Friday and feel confident that you'll be together? And how safe do you feel? Again, I'm not necessarily talking physically safe here. I'm talking about emotional safety too. I'm talking about, like, how safe do you feel in terms of, are you going to be hurt in this relationship? How safe do you feel in terms of your sense of how much you can lean on your partner and be taken care of? Because relationships, in many ways, are an attempt to try and find safety in an inherently unsafe situation. In relationships, we put a lot on the line. The stakes are very, very high, and we're being at our most vulnerable. And so, in many ways, relationships are inherently emotionally unsafe. And so our job, it could be argued, is to try and create some sort of place of safety where that vulnerability can be allowed to be. So that's the first one. In terms of the relationship, how safe and secure are you feeling out of 10? Secondly, how appreciated do you feel? Now, there are very few times that people break up and say, do you know what? He just appreciated me too much. There he was all the time with his appreciation. So how appreciated do you feel would be another good marker. The third one is, how important do you sense you are in the life of your partner? You see, when we don't feel important in a relationship, it's easy to start feeling sad and resentful and upset. And so being in a relationship where you feel really important to your partner is something that's really valuable. The fourth one is, how enjoyable is your time together? So when you actually get time together, do you have fun or do you not have fun? Are you bored by each other? Do you bicker? Do you argue? Or do you have a great old time of it? That allows you to kind of feed back on that one. And finally, because it's a romantic relationship, how physically satisfying is it as well? Because after all, that's one of the key things that separates this from a mere friendship. So the 5 categories that you're going to look at together is how safe and secure you feel, how appreciated you feel, how important you feel to your partner, whether your time together is enjoyable, and whether things are physically satisfying for you. And so these are the 5 areas to have a chat about, really. Going through those stages where you would give your current score just as a kind of very shorthand barometer, I suppose. Notice what's going well to put you as high as that score, and then notice what things would look like if they were a little bit better for you. Now, in terms of how often to do this, you can work that out yourselves, I suppose, and find your own sweet spot, but it's good to have a platform sometimes for an honest, constructive conversation, which is born of good intent, and the aim of which is to ensure that you're both as fulfilled within the relationship as possible, and that anything where any of these categories are beginning to wane, where you might start feeling less important to your partner, or you're not feeling quite as secure, or the appreciation has dropped, or whatever it happens to be, that you can flag it up together. Notice what's going well, and then build the relationship back up again. So my invite is that if that takes your fancy, and it might not, like all of these kind of ideas and reframes and techniques, they're not for everyone. It's horses for courses, and it's a case of picking out which ones seem to fit you. But if you like this idea, then my invite is to give it a bit of an experiment, coming from that place of good intention, coming from that place of sharing what's going well, and give it a try and see what difference it makes for you. And of course, if it's helpful, please do share it to others as well by sharing the episode. You can work with me directly. I'm Alun Parry at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And of course, you can subscribe completely free to these podcasts wherever you get your podcasts from. If you're a fan of video, by the way, and you prefer to watch them on YouTube, just go to asliceoftherapy.com, and that takes you directly to the YouTube channel. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another one.